Kelsey Mitchell lit up the scoreboard. DiJonai Carrington disappeared under the pressure. And Caitlin Clark, still sidelined, managed to dominate the moment without playing a single minute. The Indiana Fever didn't just beat the Chicago Sky. They embarrassed them. And if you were looking for closure after Carrington's infamous eye poke on Clark earlier this season, this was it. Karma arrived, dressed in navy and red. Let's get into it. If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe. Kelsey Mitchell delivered a career-defining performance, dropping 35 points with 7-4, 10 shooting from beyond the arc. She wasn't just hot, she was nuclear. Step-backs, catch-and-shoots, contested bombs, didn't matter. The Sky had no answers. It wasn't just a personal best. It was a statement. And while Mitchell was torching Chicago's defense, DiJonai Carrington was unraveling. The player who once made headlines for taking a cheap shot at Clark now found herself outmatched, outplayed, and overwhelmed. She couldn't find her rhythm. Forced possessions, poor shot selection, lazy fouls. It was all there. The numbers don't lie. And neither did the frustration on her face. Every trip down the floor looked heavier than the last. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark, sidelined with injury, was still the center of attention. She signed autographs, posed for photos, and rallied her team from the bench. And while she was in uniform, her energy was all over that court. She didn't need to play to win. Rookies like Michaela Timpson stepped up in her absence, scoring 14 points with fearless drives and confident pull-ups. Chloe BB made the most of her 10 minutes, posting 8 points and playing like her life depended on it. And then there was Aaliyah Boston, quietly dominant as always. A double-double with 14 points, 11 rebounds, and 2 massive blocks. She anchored the defense, protected the paint, and dictated the tempo. On the flip side, Chicago looked lost. Even with all the hype around Barbie Night, a promotion meant to highlight Angel Reese and inject some energy into their season. The Sky fell flat. The event felt more like a distraction than a celebration. The crowd dressed in pink, the giveaways, the music, none of it mattered, because the Fever showed up to play. Chicago head coach Tyler Marsh didn't hold back after the game. He admitted his squad came in with a screw-it mentality. And honestly, it showed. Missed rotations, flat body language, and a total lack of urgency. This wasn't a rivalry. It was a rout. And that's the twist. What was once shaping up to be one of the WNBA's most heated rivalries is now feeling like a done deal. Indiana owns the season series. They've won 3 straight against Chicago, and every win feels more decisive than the last. Carrington, in particular, looked out of sync from the jump. Maybe it was the pressure. Maybe it was Mitchell cooking her squad. Maybe it was just the weight of receipts finally being delivered. Because you can talk tough. You can throw elbows. But when the lights are bright and the scoreboard against you, that's when the real ones show up. And DiJonai didn't. Back on the Fever bench, Caitlin Clark clapped for her teammates, smiled through her injury, and watched the team she's helping reshape take another massive step forward. Her leadership was felt even without stats on the board. That's rare. That's powerful. And that's why the Fever are more than just hype, because this win proves something bigger. They don't need Clark to dominate. But when she returns, this team will be terrifying. The Sky, on the other hand, are staring down a brutal slide. 5 straight losses, chemistry questions, and a coach who's publicly acknowledging mental lapses. Not a great place to be, especially when your most high-profile players are struggling to impact the game. This was a karma game. Kelsey Mitchell got the spotlight she deserved. The Fever got the win they earned. And DiJonai Carrington? She got a full dose of the accountability fans have been waiting for. No flagrant, no payback foul, just basketball justice. And that's the sweetest kind. So where does this leave Chicago? Honestly, in a free fall. They came into the season with promise, new faces, rising stars, plenty of headlines. But headlines don't win games. Heart does. Execution does. Chemistry does. And right now, the Sky are out of sync. You could see it on Angel Reese's face. Frustration, exhaustion, maybe even confusion. She's been grinding, diving for loose balls, fighting in the paint, grabbing double-doubles, but the support around her? Inconsistent. And in games like this, that gap becomes a canyon. She wasn't the problem, but she couldn't be the solution either. Because when Kelsey Mitchell is raining fire from the arc and Aaliyah Boston is clogging the paint like a one-woman fortress, one player can't flip the outcome. And for all the flair of Barbie night, none of it masks the truth. Chicago doesn't know who they are yet. Meanwhile, Indiana, they do. They're scrappy, resilient, deep, and now, even dangerous without their superstar. That's a culture shift. That's a locker room that's buying in. From the top pick to the 10th rotation player. That's a coach who's finally figuring out the pieces and how they fit together. And that's a warning to the rest of the league. Because if the Fever can look this good without Caitlin Clark, imagine what happens when she comes back healthy and hungry. Not just physically sharp, but emotionally fired up. Ready to remind everyone who the real face of the league is. She's already changed the business of the WNBA. Ticket sales, merch numbers, TV ratings, all up, and that's with her on the bench. You think she's not watching every play, memorizing every matchup, plotting every angle? When she returns, it won't just be for a comeback. It'll be for revenge. And games like this set the tone. Because now, the Fever aren't just riding her wave. They're surfing on their own. That makes them unpredictable, harder to guard, more explosive. Now they have confidence. And now, teams like Chicago can't just key in on one player and hope to rattle the system, because the system's growing teeth. Let's not forget, Kelsey Mitchell is a walking bucket, a proven scorer who's finally getting the spacing and opportunity to cook. And when the lights hit, she rose, not just with numbers, with leadership. She celebrated every bucket, directed traffic, pulled her teammates in. She looked like a captain, a cornerstone, the kind of veteran every young squad needs. And players like Michaela Timpson, she's starting to believe. Rookie minutes are turning into real reps. Chloe Beebe, she's not just filling space. She's applying pressure. And Aaliyah Boston, let's be real, she's the anchor holding all this together. No ego, no fluff, just grit, glass, and grown woman strength in the paint. So when people say, is Indiana just riding Caitlin Clark's coattails? Let this be your answer. No, they're building a team. And the most dangerous version of the Fever isn't Clark carrying them. It's Clark unlocking them. Now imagine being an opponent. Imagine knowing Clark is coming back soon, and this team just ran up 100 points without her. That's not a spark. That's a fire. And Chicago, they just got burned. As for Carrington, yeah, she'll bounce back. She's talented, aggressive. She brings edge. But the narrative shifted. You don't get to be the villain and then disappear when the stakes rise. You don't throw fire at one of the league's most beloved stars and then fizzle when the rematch comes. And now, she's facing the double backlash, underperforming in a loss and become the face of a rivalry her team can't win. That's tough, but that's what happens when you write checks with your attitude and can't cash them with your play. And Caitlin didn't have to lift a finger to watch the balance shift. She just smiled, cheered, and watched her teammates go to work. Because that's what growth looks like. That's what buy-in looks like. That's what a franchise being reborn looks like. So what's next for the Fever? Momentum. Serious momentum. They're third in the East now. Climbing. Confident. Cohesive. They've weathered the Clark injury storm. They've silenced the they're just hype crowd. And now, they're rolling. Caitlin's return isn't just about star power. It's about timing. Because if she comes back into a system that's already functioning, she won't have to carry it. She'll elevate it. And when the playoffs come around, don't be surprised if Indiana's not just there, but scary. Because this team, they remember every elbow, every snub, every headline that doubted them. And they're turning all of it into fuel. Meanwhile, Chicago has to regroup. Fast. Fix their execution. Find a leader. Recalibrate their identity. Because right now, this isn't working. They're falling behind, and excuses are drying up. The media buzz is fading. The post-game vibes are tense. And a 5-game losing streak has a way of exposing every weakness. They'll need to decide if they're rebuilding or try and compete, because right now, they're stuck somewhere in the middle, and the league, it's not waiting for them to catch up. So let's wrap this up. DiJonai Carrington's karma didn't come in the form of revenge. It came as irrelevance. Kelsey Mitchell reminded everyone she's still that player. The Fever reminded everyone they're not just Caitlin Clark's team. They're a team with depth, discipline, and fire. And Caitlin? She sat courtside like a queen watching her empire expand. All eyes were still on her. And she didn't have to take a single shot. Now that's power. It's not just about basketball anymore. What the Indiana Fever are building, what Caitlin Clark is commanding even from the sidelines, feels bigger than wins and losses. It feels like a tectonic shift, a moment in sports where something permanent is being written. And people are noticing, not just the fans or the announcers or the analysts. The players feel it. The coaches feel it. Even the ones who would never admit it out loud. Especially the ones who spent their careers climbing the WNBA ladder the hard way, only to see a rookie, blonde, from Iowa, marketed like a superstar, walk in and draw every camera in the room. That's where some of this tension really lives. Because Caitlin Clark didn't just bring hype. She brought uncomfortable questions. Why wasn't the league this visible before? Why weren't the arenas sold out? Why weren't the games getting primetime coverage? It's not that Clark was the first great player, but she was the first to bring this level of attention, and she brought it quickly. And for veterans like DiJonai Carrington, who fought tooth and nail for every endorsement, every jersey sale, every local broadcast slot, watching Clark rise as fast can sting, especially when Clark's face is suddenly on every billboard, while others are still proving themselves night after night. But instead of letting that fire drive better performances, what we saw, particularly in games like this, is players cracking under the pressure trying to outshine the machine. And that's what made this Fever win so powerful, because they weren't just playing for Clark. They weren't even playing without her. They were playing to prove that this team isn't defined by one name, one face, or one rivalry. They're building something sustainable, something strategic, something built to last. That's not to say Clark isn't essential. Of course she is. She's the draw. But this team isn't relying on her as a crutch anymore. They're using her as a compass. And that's a huge difference. In the past, when a star player went down, everything collapsed around them. Now, Indiana just adapts. And that's the scariest kind of team, the one that can win in multiple ways. The Fever have options now, lineups that work, rotations that click, chemistry that's developing week by week, players who aren't afraid of the moment anymore. Kelsey Mitchell is officially the vet who never left. She's seen every rebuild. She's played through every disappointment. But now she's finally leading something with momentum. And you can tell she's not taken for granted. Her game against Chicago wasn't just about numbers. It was about tone. She said it early. She controlled the pace. She barked at defenders. She celebrated every teammate's bucket like it was her own. And most importantly, she didn't let up. It's easy to go up big and coast. Mitchell didn't. She played like she remembered every eye roll, every comment about Clark's team, every doubt thrown her way, and then she buried those doubts from three, over and over again. The rest of the team followed suit. Timpson's confidence is growing by the game. BB is starting to carve out her identity. Boston remains a quiet storm, steady, patient, dominant. And on the bench, Clark watches it all, soaking in every minute, every mistake, every triumph. You can tell she's itching to get back. But in the meantime, she's learning something most rookies don't get a chance to: how to lead without playing. That's rare. That's real. That's why when she comes back, it won't just be about putting up 25 and 8. It'll be about elevating a team that's already found its rhythm and pushing it to another level. Let's not ignore what this moment represents, though. It's a rare power shift happening in real time. The WNBA has long been a league driven by defense, post-play, and veteran toughness. And there's nothing wrong with that. It built a foundation. But now, a new generation is demanding space. Faster play, sharper shooting, marketable moments, viral highlights. Clark is at the center of it. But she's not alone. The Fever's evolution mirrors what the league itself is going through, struggling with how to welcome a new wave without disrespecting the old one, figuring out how to let stars be stars without forcing them into boxes. And yes, that's going to lead to growing pains. There will be more Carrington-like moments, players lashing out, fans picking sides, commentators stirring the pot. But underneath all that noise, there's progress. This game, this blowout win without Clark, sent a message to the league. This team is deeper than one headline. It has layers, personality, identity. It can win gritty. It can win pretty. It can win loud. Or, as we just saw, it can win efficiently with surgical precision and no mercy. It's not about proving anyone wrong anymore. It's about proving they're ready. And that readiness, that quiet confidence, is what separates contenders from chaos. That's why the sky crumbled. Because they weren't just facing 5 players. They were facing belief. And belief is contagious. Just ask the Fever's bench, the way they stood for every big shot. Just ask the fans, who traveled just to watch a game Clark didn't even play in. Just ask the coaching staff, who no longer have to build a game plan around one player. This isn't just about revenge. It's about rising. So what happens now? The Fever keep building. They recover. They sharpen. They get Clark back, eventually. And she won't just return to the spotlight. She'll return to a machine. A team that's no longer afraid. No longer hesitant. No longer leaning on her to be everything. And when that happens, all bets are off. Because the league doesn't know what's coming. But it's coming fast. It's coming bold. And it's wearing Indiana red and navy. This game was a warning shot. The Fever aren't waiting anymore. They're taking everything, one win at a time. And the scary part? They're doing it with room to grow. Because if you watch this game closely, you saw flashes, not perfection. The Fever missed rotations. They turned the ball over. They got sloppy in stretches. But they still dominated. That's not just a sign of progress. That's a sign of potential. This team hasn't peaked. Not even close. They're still figuring out how to space the floor for Boston's post-ups. Still figuring out how to get Mitchell open without running her into double teams. Still testing what combinations give them the most firepower in crunch time. But even in that trial and error phase, they're finding ways to win. That's what separates hype from substance. You can't build a championship culture overnight. But you can start with games like this. Games where you embarrass a rival on their own theme night in front of their own fans. Games where you show restraint instead of retaliation. Where you beat them with ball movement, not body checks. With execution, not antics. That's how you build real rivalries. By being better. Not louder. Not dirtier. Just better. And that's what stung Chicago the most. It wasn't that they lost. It's how easily they were handled. How Indiana walked into their house, took their theme night, turned it into a highlight reel, and walked out with the win and the swagger. There was no drama, no post-game fight, no screaming match, just scoreboard dominance, silent, undeniable power. And for a team like Chicago, that's the worst kind of loss, because there's no excuse. There's no bad call to blame, no injury to fall back on. They just weren't ready. But Indiana, they were ready for all of it. The moment, the pressure, the expectations. That's what makes this win so important. Not because it adds one more to the win column, but because it confirms what this team is becoming, a problem. And when Caitlin Clark returns, she's not stepping into a team trying to figure it out. She's stepping into a system that's already cooking, which means she can focus on what she does best, shifting momentum, punishing defenders, elevating teammates, and controlling the tempo like a maestro with basketball. It means she doesn't have to force it, doesn't have to carry everything, doesn't have to be the headline every night, because now she's surrounded by killers. And that's the version of the Fever that's truly terrifying, the one where Clark is the final piece, not the only piece, the one that doesn't care if you call it a rivalry, because they're not here for the drama. They're here for the win. And if this game was any indication, they're just getting started. That's the message Indiana just sent to the rest of the league. They've crossed a line from interesting to dangerous, from a team with promise to a team with presence. And nothing about this feels like a fluke. It's the energy, the body language, the way they walk into the arena now, not hoping to compete, but expecting to dominate. Even without Caitlin Clark, there's an edge to this group, a hunger, and they've earned it because this team has taken every shot this season, literally and figuratively. The cheap fouls, the online criticism, the constant microscope, every narrative written about Clark, every whisper about her teammates not being good enough. They heard all of it, and instead of breaking, they got better. They stopped waiting for Clark to save them and started saving each other. They grew up fast, and you can feel it in the way they talk now, in the way they celebrate a good screen or a clutch rebound, just as much as a highlight play. They're playing for each other, and that's what makes them so hard to stop. Because when you don't know who's going to beat you, Mitchell, Boston, Timpson, BB, Howard, how do you game plan? You can't, and that's the shift. Teams used to come in thinking, slow down Caitlin Clark, and we've got this. Now, that strategy is a death sentence. Because the Fever have weapons, they've got versatility, and they've got a new identity, relentless. Chicago learned that the hard way. What was supposed to be a chance to reclaim pride, maybe even avenge past losses, turned into a televised unraveling. And DiJonai Carrington, once seen as a spark to ignite the rivalry, found herself barely visible. No hero moment, no big statement, just silence. And sometimes silence is louder than trash talk, because for all the fire she brought earlier in the season, Carrington had no answer when the game demanded more than attitude. This wasn't about revenge. It was about exposing who's really ready to lead. And Carrington wasn't. But Indiana, they were more than ready. They didn't need the spotlight. They became it. That's why this one matters. It's more than just numbers on a stat sheet. It's symbolic of growth, of grit, of everything this team has been fighting to prove since day one. That they belong. That they're not just riding a media wave. That even without their biggest star, they can deliver the knockout punch. And the best part? They're only going to get better. Because when Caitlin Clark returns, she's not coming back to carry them. She's coming back to join them. This team has already found its identity. Now it's just waiting for its queen to return to the court and reclaim the crown. And when that happens, the league won't just feel it. It'll fear it.